It's such a great question, and I don't know the exact day that it happened, but I do remember this point where I had sort of I had started these dance classes for people with Parkinson's disease. It's my background. I was a professional dancer, and I learned that dance was could potentially be a good way to connect Parkinson's, help them get control of their body, more confidence, and basically just joy. And so I had this little idea at the time. I was doing a lot of sort of like fitness stuff, but I wanted to do a give back to my community with my art, which was, something that I knew so well and had given me so much, dance. And so I had this idea to have this like little class once a week. Maybe a few people with Parkinson's would show up and we would dance together and it would be joyful, and that would be that. And I would still go on and do the rest of my life. And so basically from that little idea, on the first day of classes, 15 people with Parkinson's showed up, which I was completely unprepared for because it was also like a blizzard and it was in this very sort of abstract, out of the way location. And then they came the next week and the next week, and more people came. And I still had in my head, we're just going to go and like be joyful and dance and create art. But then I had too many people coming. And so then I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to ask some friends to volunteer to help me out. Oh gosh, now I have a waiting list. Now I have to add another class. Before I knew it, I had 6 classes going. Wow. And a number of locations, like within maybe a couple of years. But no funding, no sort of structure. It was still just, oh, people like this. Let's keep doing it. They seem to be happy. More people feel like they need it. So there was this sort of like demand through the people that I was just trying to meet. And it was just a very joyful, beneficial experience for everyone. And it was about 2 years in where I was like, how do we now make this sustainable? Because more and more people throughout Ontario and in fact Canada were hearing about this and saying, how do we get this in our community? And so then it was really sort of getting down and going, okay, this is obviously taking up a lot of my time anyway. How do I get funding? How do we sort of structure this? And it was sort of at that point like where I applied to become a registered charity. And brought a board on and started hiring and training other people to do what I did in other locations. So there was no sort of intention of starting an organization. Really, it was really just, I'm going to do this little class once a week and it'll be really fun, and then I will feel like I did a good thing. We'll all enjoy it. But, life had other plans. And, that was almost 13 years ago. And it is my entire life. That first day of classes changed the entire trajectory of my life's work. And so, yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. We talk a lot about in this workshop around aligning your work with your passion, kind of like the emotions that you want to feel every day, that you want to put out into the world. And it seems like that's exactly where it started for you.
That's exactly where it started, and it's exactly where it continues. And if there was sort of any advice, it's anything that you do and do well, and any sort of entrepreneurial endeavor that you do, it takes a lot of work. It doesn't stop. It doesn't stop. There's always stuff to do, and there's always stuff to learn, and always challenges, and then always wonderful things. So you better absolutely love what it is, and you better really believe in it, because then it's a journey of creativity, as opposed to going to work.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for starting us off on that, because that's exactly what we start our workshops off on, is your passion.
All right.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I mean, I think Sarah's story reminded me a lot of my journey as well, and in the sense that it's a journey, and that's the exact thing that you just have to understand, that there's going to be highs, there's going to be lows, and then a high comes again, and then you hit another low. And for me as well, it was just a matter of figuring it out as I went, because I started off as a teacher. So I was teaching in the public school system, teaching grade 6 for 6 years. And during that time, Instagram began, and I started to connect pieces and try to just share my work online in fashion. It was never something I went to school for. It was never something that I even intended to turn into a business ever. It was just something I did on a day-to-day basis, dress up and go to work. And I started to share my ideas or my styling tips, and even like art that I did on clothing, and just shared it online because Instagram was there. It was an outlet for me to just put it out, and still teaching at the same time. And then slowly people would want to see videos and wanted to see other content, and then companies wanted to pay for that content. And then now I'm able to create art and share it with other people in other ways, like, you know, and it just grew. And then I started styling people, and every step of the way I just loved it enough, just like you had said, Sarah, just loved it enough to like figure out the next problem and solve the next thing that I needed to accommodate what I loved. And whether that was like, again, selling things or providing a service that, you know, I loved doing something and other people were benefiting from it. So it was just a journey, and like, you just have to go through the ups and the downs. And I think the sooner you realize that and are okay with it, you will just continue to be on this like upward hill. And yeah, that's how I felt.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something you mentioned the piece about, you know, solving different problems. And as I'm sure as your business expanded and grew, you started to realize the different problems that you were like solving for other people. And then something else would come up and something come up. And that's how it would grow, because you were creating impact for people.
Exactly. And bringing it back to passion, like with teaching, I was doing that on a day-to-day basis as well, and I loved it. But if you compare that to other jobs that you may have throughout your life, there might be those jobs that you're not so excited about going into. And that's when you just slowly chip away at what you like and what you don't like, and you figure out what you're really meant to do and what brings you the most peace. And then you'll be at peace with solving problems forever.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great way of putting it. Thank you. Would like to go next?
I mean, I think I fumbled my way into it. You know, I started off doing talent shows in high school. I had a lot of friends who had talent, but there were no platforms. Nobody wanted racialized kids in their venues. Nobody wanted young people in their venues. I started doing spoken word before it was even called spoken word. Nobody knew what this thing was. So I just had to kind of figure it out. And I put on a talent show, and in this talent show, I reached out to some more established artists that I knew, and they were like, "All right, well, how much are you paying me?" And I was like, "Oh, wait, artists actually ask for money. This is I didn't know this." So I had to figure out, well, how was I going to pay these people? So then I realized, okay, I'm going to have to charge an admission fee so that I have enough money so that I can pay these artists. And from that first experience, I started to understand how the money part had to work in order for the show to work. So pretty much from the very first event that I produced, I realized, all right, there's a business aspect to this. And everything that I've done since then has always taken the business side of things in mind to make sure that artists get paid, I get paid, all expenses are paid, and that, you know, people want to perform and be in my events and be associated with my events because it's a positive experience for everybody involved. So I had no business knowledge. I didn't even know I was even an artist. I just kind of started, and then everything just kind of happened. And I was like, oh, okay, there's a possibility here. And then I just, through trial and error, explored what that possibility could look like.
It's amazing. Yeah, absolutely. Trial and error. Definitely. Thank you.
No problem.
Carlos, over to you.
Okay. I think like we know, in my case, I always knew that I have a talent to create, to do art. But part of the big, I have a lot of challenge when I moved to Canada 10 years ago. And I believe the first big challenge was learning the language, English. And the second one was find because I'm self-taught. So I had to find myself like an artist, and the big problem that the artists have is like, and all the time I had when I do this conversation with other artists and talk about this, is like one of the big challenge was like to know, give it the value of your art, that you ask the artists, the younger artists, the new artists in there, they don't know how to give it the value. So for me, when I was looking myself in this country, learning the language, trying to survive, and trying to find identity with my art, I think was a moment when I do one of my big like my first pieces, like abstract pieces, like I find myself like they have my soul there, like I find myself like that this is my art. I in that point I find the real value of my work. I have like the first 3 years living in Canada, painting a lot of stuff from pictures or whatever, and I didn't find myself. So I didn't find a way to give it the value. And when I give you the value to my art, the real value, and somebody buy one of my first pieces for the real value that my art was, in that moment I realized that it's a business, that you can live from art, and it's not very. We're talking about. I have to talk about amount, because that way you can realize how this works. If you create a piece in 2-3 days, you sell it for $2,000. At least you don't have to make a lot of math to know that it's better to do your art and that do whatever in the side, like working a part-time or whatever. I know it's very hard, because it started the journey like being an artist. It's like doing a part-time, try to survive, how to find a client for your art. But for me, the first moment when I was working really hard for 4 years trying to find myself, was when I sold one of my first pieces online. And at that moment, oh, this is a business here, and I put all my energy in that.
Absolutely, and thank you for bringing that piece of value, because we talk about that a lot in the workshop, is that really everything that comes out of you, like, one of the things we say in art, you're in the business of selling yourself, because you're selling all that stuff that's coming out from you, your own experiences, your own creativity, and that's the value of your work. So it's really, really important to kind of understand and get in touch with your value. Thank you for that. So I'm going to move on to the second question. What is one thing that you have learned throughout your journey? And some of you have already talked a little bit about this, but maybe we can expand or add something else that you think would be a benefit to somebody who is starting to see themselves as a creative business and is starting to kind of shift that thinking of, I just do my art or for myself, or, I sell here and there, nothing regular, but like really how to become that business. Like, what is a piece of advice that you would give based on your own journey?
I can start with that one. I teach every now and then a business of art workshop. And one of the things that I always try to get people to do in that is imagine that you are the product, right? If you imagine that, if your company is Coca-Cola or whatever, how do you think that they approach all of their products, all of their pieces of art, whether that's Coke, Sprite, Diet Coke, Diet Sprite, Dasani water? All of those things have a different identity. All of the pieces of art that you put out are different from the one before. So just imagine yourself as a corporation, and the same things that corporation has to do to be successful, you have to do to be successful. You have to think about your marketing plan. You have to think about how you look on social media, your branding, all of those kinds of things. All of the same things that a corporation has to think about, you should be thinking about those things too, and understanding that you are the exact same kind of entity and operate from that kind of business model. And it will help you to cover all the bases that you need to cover, because, as Sarah was saying, it is a lot of work and a lot of stuff that has to be done. And for most of us, we are the team. We are the one who has to do all of it. We're the marketing department, we're the branding department, we're the PR department. So we do it all. So yeah, you have to love it, and just spend your time chipping away at all the different pieces of it, because we usually don't have the resources to have other people behind us to make all of these things happen.
And that's a very important point, to take also the time to learn about all these different pieces and educate yourself. It will make it a lot easier. What does it mean to put together a brand or a good marketing strategy? Absolutely. Thank you.
I think that's such great advice and insight, Dwayne. I wish I need to take your course actually. To think of ourselves like a Coca-Cola, that sort of branding. What do they do? Because I feel like what at least happens in the dance world, so I don't want to speak for everyone, but artists undervalue themselves because there isn't sort of artists make this much money, whereas like, you know, doctors, lawyers, nurses, we sort of have an idea of where, you know, how much to take in. But, you know, Carlos, you create a piece, how many hours do you take it down by the hour, the amount, how, you know, how difficult it was to do, or, you know, as dancers, we're always dancing for everyone for free. You know, it's like, oh yeah, no, we just love it so much. And that was one of the mistakes that I did make with Dancing with Parkinson's, is that I love it so much. I did so much for so little. In fact, went into personal debt in a large amount because I started paying everybody else to help me out, but actually never took anything back for myself. So I kind of went into, because I loved it so much. So I think it's really important to take Dwayne's advice and think of yourself as a product, and or your business, your offering, your creative offering, because it really does mean something, and it is of great value. So make sure that you are asking for the, you know, the amount of money and promoting yourself and doing all those things, but taking in enough to really support what you are doing, even though you're passionate about it. Because you cannot pay your mortgage or your rent on passion, trust me. So, you know, so yeah, thanks Dwayne for that. I'm just sort of rolling off. That's great.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I had somebody once say, you know, you are your own employee, so don't forget to pay yourself, right? You have to pay yourself first because you are the employee of your corporation. So absolutely.
There's a quote that always comes to mind when I share that same advice with people. Set your price and live your life. It's just something that I, throughout the years, have had to remind myself every time where I've had to quote somebody, or, you know, I'm always guilting myself, like, oh, should I be doing this? But then I just say that one line and I just do it. One piece of advice that I had to give myself throughout the years was also not taking advice from people less successful than me. Especially coming from like a small town, your whole life is your family and like your friends around you, but what you want to do is going to be bigger than that. So you need to seek out advice and friendships and people in spaces that are doing things that you aspire to be doing, and not feel bad about that, because at the same time you're going to be dealing with, you know, opinions of the people that you love. But it's really okay to only take advice from people more successful than you, whether that comes from a mental space, you know, like you want to only have people in your life that you feel are strong mentally and in a good place and can help you out. Financially, only take advice from people who are in a financial situation that you want to be in every space. So yeah, I think that's also a battle, cutting out the voices that you've always had and then bringing in new voices.
That's so important. Thank you so much for highlighting that. Absolutely. Such a great piece of advice.
Okay. I think I said a lot the last question. I believe like this journey for me in this point, it was over expectation of me, because when I start this, I want to live from art. I want to at least get a decent meal from my art. And that happened, and it keeps surprising me every day what is happening. And it keeps surprising me how the art open doors for me every day. But the more important to know that I had to say right now is like, I had to say that for me, the online world, the virtual world was the key of my journey. to find the weight of the success with my business, with my art. And I don't lose. I'm very passionate about to create every day, and I'm very passionate about to grow, and I'm very passionate about because this is gonna, I don't know if this is gonna sound but sound weird, but I'm very passionate about to make money too. I like it. Yeah. So forget it. And I open a new option for my business. And my country, I opened a cafe bar. It's closed for the COVID, but it's okay. We are gonna reopen soon. And I'm passionate about money in art and creativity. I don't lose my path at the end. My dream is to see my art in a museum or something. By between that, I like to make money too. And I am very, when somebody approaches to me asking me about my art, I know what I'm selling because it's something from here. And that's very valuable, no? Mm-hmm. So that's,
yeah, absolutely. I think sometimes as artists we forget that we want to put down the idea that, oh, we shouldn't be making money, or it's bad to make money. You know, it's like, no, you're just as much worth it to make money and enjoy that money as anybody else. Mm-hmm. So I think that's really important. And before I go to my next question, I just want to, I know I didn't give you guys this question, so this is on the spot, but I just thought of it. As Carlos, you said, you know, the online space has been a big tool for you, and I know your work. So like, I know Instagram and online has been a big selling space for you. I wonder if anybody can mention just like quickly, what has been the biggest stream of where you have been able to create the biggest sales in your work? Or we're talking about money. Where has been the biggest income coming from you, and you know, in what format?
For me, I would say Instagram as well. That was definitely where it began until I was able to build it up to a point where I could sell it in other ways. Because my biggest community was on Instagram when I started to promote a service or promote anything that I was going to be making money off of. So Instagram for sure. And then until you can build another platform where you can sell it in other ways.
Great, thank you.
I think for
Go ahead. You go ahead, Dwayne. Go for it.
I think for me, you know, I started putting my poems on YouTube when YouTube just kind of started, and then I started getting offers to perform in Germany and Europe and all sorts of different places because people just saw it and it's like, oh, this is cool, this is different. And so, you know, I started traveling around the world just doing that. So I think in terms of having, you know, the biggest kind of thing, I think the early days of YouTube and me putting my work there was very instrumental.
Great, thank you.
I'll say for our organization, because we're dealing with a really, you know, a senior citizen demographic. Now we work with all seniors, not just those with Parkinson's disease. Social media is not our hot ticket, really, because I mean, now more seniors are sort of on social, but that, you know, maybe Facebook. So Instagram isn't huge for us. So where we sort of get the most sort of awareness, and our ideas get as many people taking our classes as possible. So as many people who have Parkinson's or as many seniors as possible are taking these classes and enjoying all the benefits, right? Coming out of isolation, connecting with others, the physicality, the mental spirit thing. So we want as many people to know, but social media is not really been the way we've been able to do that. For us, it's getting like news spots, you know, like getting on the nightly news, like Global or the CBC. So at least, you know, a couple of times a year, I try and secure a couple of, you know, news pieces. They're like 2-minute segments, and they really just are highlighting something that we're doing in the program. Just so, and honestly, there's always just a massive influx after those, because that's where our demographic is. They're at 6 p.m. watching the news, or the morning news at 7 a.m. But what I am learning is that we need to use our social media to actually target the children of the people we want in our classes. So that's something that we are now sort of developing. And so that looks different than what we were doing. We were doing social media to try and talk to seniors, and that was going flat. So now it's sort of revamping and rejigging and talking to the children and also the healthcare professionals. So sort of we're starting to figure that out now.
Thank you. Yeah, and the reason I wanted to ask this is because it connects to understanding your market, and then when you're adding in the market or you're changing in the market, you know, that how you talk to them and how they move and how they engage is going to be the way that you want to engage with them to be able to bring in the money that they have. So yeah, thank you for that. So my third question is about what some of the challenges that you have experienced in your business, maybe one of the biggest challenges that you've had, and what have you done to work through it? Maybe you still have that challenge and are consistently working through it. Just if you can kind of talk to us a little bit about some of the challenges that you've had in some ways that you got through them.
I guess for me, I think there's always been gatekeepers and people. So, you know, when I started writing poems and people would be like, hey, do you have a book? And I'm like, no. And then I try to figure out how to make that happen. The people in the publishing world said, we don't really like what you do. We don't like what you're talking about. We don't like how you use the English language. I mean, I heard so many, negative things. When I wanted to, go out and perform, I wasn't welcome in a lot of literary, spaces. So a lot of places where I turned, I just was not welcome. And I think that was the biggest obstacle, but also the biggest blessing, because what it created was a situation where I had to build everything myself. So, before self-publishing was a thing, I started self-publishing books in 1995. And it would really piss a lot of people off because, we would go to these shows, the poetry readings and stuff. And, the poets who didn't want me there had their books and no one was buying them. And then there was a lineup of people buying my books. The shows that I was doing had 300-400 people coming out, and then people who were doing the poetry readings were getting upset because they had maybe 30 people showing up. So it really, the exclusion, being made to feel like I wasn't wanted, like I didn't belong, was one of the greatest motivating factors to inspire me to just go out there and do it and prove everybody wrong, and to limit the amount of other people who had to go through what I had to go through, to create spaces for those other people who were pushed to the sides, who were cast aside, who were made to live on the margins. I always wanted to advocate for those artists. And to this day, I still create space for those marginalized artists who aren't always accepted into mainstream of whatever it is that they do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. But I think that is such a big challenge and common challenge in different sectors in the arts. So thank you for highlighting that.
Yeah, I think that was an amazing story, Dwayne. And I think that for me as well, in Toronto, I had felt like I reached a certain ceiling where I felt like I had done what I needed to do here. And when I looked around at the students that I was teaching, and they were following my journey as well, I was teaching them and creating my online platform at the same time. So the kids that I was teaching were just watching this journey. And the hardest part for me was when I had to make the decision to leave Toronto and to leave that atmosphere with the constant creativity around me with kids and with my family and everything, and just move to a place where I would have to start back from zero and do it all over again, and figure out if there was space for me to be on a bigger platform than just a Toronto creative stylist who worked with artists in Toronto. So that's when I moved to Brooklyn. And that transition, which only happened 2 years ago, was the biggest in both the greatest ways and the worst ways. Like, it was definitely the most challenging, but really removing myself from that comfortable environment and throwing myself into something that was uncomfortable in every way whatsoever, and just growing from there. Yeah, and the positives of that experience, now that I look back at it, far outweigh how challenging it was at the time.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. That's great. A lot of bravery and courage, and which is a strength we need as entrepreneurs, 100%.
I think for me, I sort of mentioned it in the last question that my organization, I expanded so quickly and robustly without knowing what the heck I was doing in any which way, shape, or form. So I you know, I had a lot of things to manage and was still sort of doing my other job at the same time. And so I have to be honest, like it was about 7 or 8 years in before any real sort of structure, like business infrastructure, was put into place. And we're still doing that now. Because as soon as, you know, somebody would call from Brampton and say, we have this, you know, amazing group of people with Parkinson's, and they want, okay, I'm going to get I'm going to train a teacher, I'm going to get that there. And oh, Oakville, sure. Okay, Oshawa, sure. And I just I wanted it to happen for these people, but I didn't have, you know, Dwayne has mentioned, like, we don't usually have people helping us on the back end. So it's just like full-time, around the clock job. And so that was the biggest challenge of saying no, of saying, actually, we've got 15 locations going. I can't do anymore until we get this in place and we get this in place. And in fact, it wasn't me who said it, it was my board. They were like, stop saying yes. Right? And that was a real, like, I was like, no, but they want it, you know, that kind of, I want to bring what the people need to the people, and sort of realizing that if we didn't stop that expansion, then we would just have to close down. Like, we really had to get the proper funding and sustainability. So that has been one of that was one of the biggest challenges, and it continues to unfold, right? We continue to build that infrastructure. And then another big challenge was having a set idea of how things would look and letting go of that. As sort of time went on and, you know, new challenges were presented, new opportunities were presented, it's always a matter of going, okay, what really matters? How could this look, and being open to the possibilities. There was a time where, you know, I was the only person doing this in Canada. And then there was a lot of people sort of, my next door neighbors, opening up the same program and saying that they were the first ones to do this program. And then it was like, oh no, like, I'm going to lose my business because there's such a big mega machine and I'm just this little old me trying to, you know, so all of that, letting go of all of that and going, no, you know what you're doing, like, just keep on your path, like sort of letting the noise, not getting caught up in all the noise, and staying true with sort of what's inside. Yeah.
Absolutely, and thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I think a lot of people at the beginning don't think about growth and expansion, and you know, they see it, oh, that'll be great when I expand, but actually if you don't prepare for it and build for it, it could literally be the end of your business.
Yeah, exactly. It could have been the end of us if we didn't stop it.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay, I think for me was a lot of challenge in the last 10 years. Just we come to this country without the language, without education, was a really big challenge to learn the English as soon as I can. I didn't like the school. I didn't like the program for the newcomers. It's very slow, like 4 years studying and trying to learn some English for get a certificate for what? To go to this college or something. It's gonna be 8 years. It's gonna be almost 40, and I'm happy with my life. So my big first challenge was just try to find a job with somebody that speaks just English and push myself to learn. And then my other big challenge was to leave that job and get just focus on art. So and that was a big decision because I'm an immigrant. I had to find money to survive, support my family back home too, and what should do. So it was a big decision to keep doing whatever I was doing, like part-times and working in whatever I can do, you know, and or just dedicate my full time to and all my energy in art. I am very tough with myself. I'm the person that I say, in 2 years, I'm not here, I'm not wherever I want to be. I quit that and I look for other thing. And every 2 years was like that. pushing so much to find my goals. But all the time was about a big decision. Like the time that I wanna have the chance to work with the gallery, but I didn't find the respect for my art from that gallery, and I had to say no. I don't want to work with you. I want to stop. I want to remove my art from your gallery, and I deserve respect, you know, for my art and my business. So I think a big challenge for me was that, like, took that any artist had this challenge all the time, was to get a regular job or dedicate your life to your passion and become a business from that passion. So that was a big challenge for me.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And that kind of takes us into the next question, which is now during COVID, a lot of businesses have been hit hard, you know, and regular jobs have as well. So how have you managed during this time? You know, what have you done to kind of pivot or to change? And do you have any advice for creative individuals, especially who may or may not yet be a business, but are on that journey?
Okay, you go ahead. You go.
I feel like during this time, people who are self-employed, artists, business owners, this is our time to thrive because we're so used to doing this. So that, like, this is what we do on our day-to-day. You know, you face a situation, like I said in the first question, you have a situation, you figure it out because you love it enough, and then you figure out another way. So for me, during this time, that's just what it's all been about. I'm not able to personally see clients anymore, and there's also no events for me to be dressing anybody for. I've had to turn to my commissioned work, or before, in the beginning, it was online consults, which I still do. So pivoting, and I feel like that's been the word of 2020, pivot, and just figuring out a way to continue the money stream, but also spend the time to educate myself on something that I might not be as well versed in, and using that time, like learning about, I don't know, the stock market, something that I never really took time to learn about, and just learning. Yeah,
that's really important point. Thank you.
Strangely enough, COVID has presented my organization with like new silver linings, which is so strange because when COVID hit, you know, sort of there was a rumblings of it going on. And as you know, like, so at the time I had 15 different locations throughout the GTA, which served, you know, 20 to 25 people with Parkinson's in each location, all seniors. So they would run, you know, 7 days a week. And when I heard the rumblings and they're talking about, you know, this virus affects the elderly population the most and all of that, I was like, I think we need to close. Like, we need to close right away. We need to keep everybody safe. So we closed a little bit earlier just to like see what was going on. And then it was sort of mandated, everything would close down. And I went through 2 weeks, and it's probably a pretty similar 2 weeks to everyone else, glued to the TV, waiting for the Prime Minister to speak, waiting for somebody to tell me something, paralyzed, completely paralyzed. I thought my business was over because I had it so cemented in my head that the wonderful thing about our organization is we created in each of these locations a family connection with each of our participants, with in-person touch and movement. And that's why it works, and that's why they come back, and that's all we got. So I was like, oh my God, like this is it, you know? And then I was like, hold on a second, like there's this thing called Zoom. And so got in touch with our students. I call them students, but they're our elderly dancers. And I said, you know, let's just try this thing. And so a bunch of them signed on the first day. And I'm technologically like just very remedial. And we danced together for 20 minutes. And it was like the first time in 2 weeks that I actually felt that joy back, that we get when we dance together. And, you know, so the students were like, can we do that again tomorrow? Oh, okay, we'll do it again tomorrow. And then I was like, why don't we just do this every day right now while we can, you know? Our mission at Dancing with Parkinson's is to bring seniors out of isolation and get them connected in an artistic way. So why don't we just keep doing that? And what actually happened is that people were saying, well, can I invite my neighbor? She doesn't have Parkinson's. Can I invite, because she lives alone, she's in a long-term care facility, he's in a retirement home, blah, 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 blah. Before I knew it, we had 100 people coming on every day, seniors from across Canada. And the feedback, and we're still doing that every single day, 7 days a week. So if anybody has a senior in mind who wants to dance for 20 minutes a day, it's really, really fun. But the thing that has been the biggest learning to me is that I had it in my mind, we could only do it this way, and this is why it works. What I'm learning from the participants, and we're actually doing an evaluation right now, is that it's working better online for many of our clients because they live far away from classes. It would take 4 hours out of their day to get there. Whether they had Parkinson's or not, seniors are often isolated and things are just harder to do and to get around, and it takes a lot of energy. And the people who are taking these classes every day are making friends, you know, in the Brady Bunch style from across the country, sharing stories and feeling like they are part of something. And they're also exercising and like staying engaged in community while in isolation. So for us, it's actually changed my whole thinking of what we're doing at Dancing with Parkinson's, that I want to now grow what we're doing online every day and offer it to many more. And that's where now all the push is going to be, is in the outreach to all seniors across Canada, and make this a very full, accessible program for so many more than we could have ever impacted. And it would have never occurred to me, because I thought I was an in-person service. And that's the only way the benefit would come. And I've been proven completely wrong, luckily. And not that what's going on in the world is a good thing whatsoever, but there has been a massive silver lining and awakening in my organization to be able to help many more now.
Yeah, I think what your story illustrates is how our own limited thinking can sometimes get in the way, but also it illustrates understanding, always checking back in and understanding with your clients and their needs, because sometimes we can kind of get stuck in thinking that we know their needs just because we've been doing it in a certain way for so long, but that you know, their needs change just as much as ours. So it's important to kind of check in.
I think we make a lot of assumptions going along, and so the giving your clients and your audience a voice and a chance to check in and share is just like, it's invaluable.
Yeah, great, thank you. Dwayne or Carlos?
I guess for me, it would be a mix of, you know, what Sandeep and Sarah had shared. I mean, there's nothing about my life that is normal ever. So, I mean, this stuff happening is just another thing that is happening, and you just kind of have to figure it out. And, you know, pretty much every day there's just something to figure out in what I do. And this just happens to be, you know, the current thing. You know, when everything got shut down, it was the day before my book launch. It was the day before one of the biggest shows that I produce every year. It was the 20th anniversary of a show that I produced, and it got shut down by the city the night before. I had artists who were flown into the country who were just chilling in hotel rooms, waiting to perform. And the city was just like, nope, that many people can't be in one space. And I was just like, this sucks, but you figure it out. And, you know, after that weekend, you know, I was kind of pissed off for that weekend. And then after I got out of my feelings and just really looked at things, I was like, you know what, there's a huge opportunity here, you know, for artists, especially, you know, with the stuff that I do. So I started doing, you know, online creative writing workshops, and realized that my audience was no longer people in Toronto. There were people in Vancouver who were signing up. There were people in different places who were just signing up because they were home and they had stuff to do. So then I started doing online poetry slams. And then I had artists from around the States, Africa, different places signing up. So now instead of, needing to travel, to another continent to meet artists, we're just here on Zoom, meeting each other, networking with each other, so that, should things open back up, we now, know somebody in Ghana, in, Brooklyn, in, Washington, wherever, and just using this time to actually expand your brand, expand who you are, meet new people outside of your physical reality, I think has been an awesome opportunity that I've been doing my best to exploit as much as possible.
Absolutely. No, definitely. I mean, even us doing this workshop online has allowed us to open up to other people that normally wouldn't. So definitely. Thank you.
I think for me, I believe when this started already, I was already working for the last 5-6 years, focusing the online market. I built my building more than like the 90% of in the online market. So for me, I feel like I was ready when this started. I was very scary in the beginning because I was thinking, who wants art in a pandemic situation? I was thinking, and how the world is gonna turn on the financial way, how it's gonna happen. The people is not gonna spend money. You're gonna keep the money for groceries. That was a really panic situation in the beginning for all the news and all the media moving. But I already was the moment to say, okay, like all the business do when the things going bad, let's make discounts and make some, let's send emails to the people to let them know that they have discounts to keep afloat my business. I have a lot of collectors around the world. Let's look for the new market. That was a good opportunity to keep exploring and pushing more the online market. And yeah, that happened. I was really busy. I sold all my big pieces. I was getting new clients for new countries that I never approached. I'm 100% sure that when I took that decision 4 or 5 years ago to get focused in the online market, and being independent artist was the right decision. And I feel that when the COVID started, I was ready for this, and everything turns very well for me. And I'm very positive about the future with my business. And my advice all the time is that the world is keep moving to the virtual world. So we keep like being in the side with the virtual world, get all the good things from that. It's not just I told the new artists, it's not just about TikTok and do stupid things. It's an invaluable tool that you guys use the phone. You get the phone. If you don't have data, you can go to get a Wi-Fi from any place. And with that phone, is a huge door to the rest of the world. Like you can communicate and you can show your performance dancing, your poetry, your art around the world. You can imagine how many people I had messages from people around the world every day asking for advices. I had collectors asking for. I had people that was insulated for the quarantine that they probably because they're never stopped that long in their apartments or their condos or their houses, and they feel like they need art. And that happened. And when New York was the worst part of that was the center of the pandemic, I was shipping art to Brooklyn. I was shipping art to Queens. I was shipping art to like 5-6 different areas of New York in 1 week. So for me, that's the big opportunity to keep exploring and keep doing the right use, like the virtual. And yeah, I can say the COVID for me was amazing. Sorry, it's so bad, but it's the truth.
Thank you. Yeah, I think what all of you really speak to is the resiliency that creative individuals have and creative businesses have. And because, as you kind of say, Carlos, you were ready, I think almost everyone here is in some way kind of ready because you're always consistently dealing with challenges that typical businesses aren't necessarily dealing with, and you kind of always have to be one step ahead. So I thank you so much for sharing all of your experiences today, all of your learnings, your lessons. I mean, there's so many years here combined of experience that I really hope that everyone really just gets how much valuable feedback this has been given. So I want to open up to if anybody has questions. you are able to come on your mic if you want to ask anyone particularly, or just ask in general, or you can write it in the chat. Let's see how interactive this group wants to be. So we may not be able to do the breakout piece. So I know there were a few people that had very specific things that they wanted to ask somebody. So I invite you to do it now, to ask who you wanted to ask, what it is that you wanted to ask. And Carolyn, I see you putting your video on, so I'm gonna assume you're coming for a question.
Yeah, hi. My question is for Sarah. Hi, Sarah. I started doing it's kind of like writing therapy. So I have these writing workshops I've been doing for 6 years. And as well, in the pandemic, I switched to an online delivery and have found businesses booming. So I have a master's in the subject, and my focus was on corporate wellness and how writing can help workplace burnout. And I read in your bio that you offer your workshops as part of workplace wellness programs as well. And I was just wondering if you could speak to how you go about pitching yourself to corporations, if it's different than, I've always just pitched to like the general public and individuals, but I want to pitch directly to the companies and charge more for my offerings. And so I have to present in an elevated way. And I'm just wondering if you have advice for that.
Thank you and congratulations on your business. That's amazing. So I have not done the corporate pitch in probably 5 years because I've been so focused and invested in the Dancing with Parkinson's program. But the corporate wellness thing that I was doing was based, so the 2 books that I wrote were all about sort of getting fit in the place that you are. So one was in the workplace and one was at home. And so what I started to do was to go into corporate settings and give sort of seminars. They could have been one-offs, or they could have been like a series of workshops, all about constantly sort of staying in motion, health and wellness in the workplace. How do you maximize your physicality, lower your stress, get the most out of your employees, essentially. When I was doing that, to be honest, all of my outreach was done through my personal networks. I found that was the best way to sort of get to talk to the right people. And it was usually an email introduction. That kind of stuff is challenging to do. But if you stand behind what you have to offer, really reach out to your friend network. Who do you know? Who do you know? They may not know someone directly, but you need people on your side who will reach out and to their network and say, I have this friend who does this amazing thing. Do you know, what about that guy? Don't you know somebody who runs that bank? Or you know what I mean? And you kind of have to, you make a list. Who are the people you're going to reach out to, and who do you think that they might know they've mentioned, and you just keep going through the list. That's how I got any of the clients that I work with.
Did you back it up with any like, I understand you might have testimonials from your past participants, but would you have also provided, say, statistics or background information on how movement benefits well-being?
Absolutely. You know, I was pretty lucky in terms of, because I was at the time when I was doing that, I had been working for CBS in New York. They're an early morning show as the fitness expert. And then later on, it's the Stephen and Chris show as the fitness expert. So honestly, I completely exploited that calling card. And so for me, it was like kind of saying those things, and, you know, had a couple of fitness books, and it was a fairly easy sell. It was when things in the workplace were just starting to change in terms of thinking about employee health and wellness. And you know, the way that you get the most productivity out of your employees is to keep them healthy and lower their stress. And we all know that we do that by, you know, staying active, exercising, eating right, all of those things. Minimize lost work days due to like illness, right? So yeah, I'd be happy to, you know, bounce ideas off of you with you if you wanted to contact me directly.
Sure, I'd love that. Thank you.
Yeah, we can chat sometime. Yeah.
Does anybody else on the panel want to add to that, or I don't know if anybody else wants to add to Carolyn's question? Okay, thank you, Carolyn. We have a question also for Sarah in the chat that says about, are your various center organizations your clients or individuals? So I think the question is about
the dancing.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have, we have offered some of our classes in seniors' homes. So that would be considered an organization, like for example, the North York Senior Center. We have a weekly class running there. We have weekly classes running at Cedarvale, Christie Gardens. But then there are other locations that I just, you know, rent a space, and it's individuals coming from whoever lives in that vicinity. So both. We offer classes to organizations and to individuals throughout the GTA, but now to everyone, all individuals throughout Canada.
Great, thank you.
And I just want to say that, Carlos, that was my favorite thing that I've heard in 4 months, where you're like, for me, COVID is amazing. That was the best.
Do we have any other questions for any of the panelists, or in general, anybody want to ask? Anything you want to bounce off of while they're here? This is a rare opportunity. And don't get stuck in the thinking that, oh, maybe, you know, we're not in the same sector. Really look at it as creative business, because that translates to whatever your tool or your sector or your modality is. The work really translates to all of it. So I think that even if you are not a writer or a stylist or a dancer or a visual artist, you can still benefit from asking your question from these sectors.
So I have a question. It's Vanessa. It's not really about like business per se, but it's more personal. So
yeah,
it's the self-doubt piece. So even though you have all of these ideas and you have the confidence, you have all this stuff, you know that you're able to do it. It's those voices in your head that keep telling you that you can't, or because you don't have this, you can't do this, or because you look this way, you can't do this. So what is one sentence that you say to yourself to shut that voice up and continue moving forward?
Great question. Yeah, maybe we can start with Dwayne. I was just going to call you out, and there you go.
Okay, awesome. I mean, it's interesting because you know, I'm an introvert who makes my living speaking to people and being on stage, which is something I'm totally not comfortable doing. However, it is what I do. And one of the things that I've had to do to get over that is when I thought about, you know, all of the, you know, things that I would say to myself, to tell myself, you know, not to get up on stage, to not share. I realized that I was thinking about myself more than I needed to. And what I did was I shifted my perspective, and instead of thinking about myself, I started thinking about what it is that I'm giving away to other people. And if I don't do this, I'm robbing them of a gift that I have to give to them. And when you can think more about what it is you're actually giving to people and less about who's actually giving it, it allows you to give yourself the permission to just go out there and give this stuff to people, and you think less about yourself, and you start to quiet that voice, because the voice no longer has power, because that voice is just telling you all the reasons why you shouldn't, why you can't. But when you realize and focus on the why you're doing it, and that I am doing this to give something to someone, you focus on the end person who's going to receive what it is that you have to give. And I think that really helps to quiet that voice.
That's amazing. That felt like a poem right there.
I had a question, just hopping off of what you were just saying, Dwayne. So like one of the things I love how, you know, just switching that perspective, like it's a great way of doing it. But how about if you're not quite sure, like, that your art is providing anything to anyone? Like you don't have the security in the art you're putting out there yet. Like, I don't know, does anyone have any kind of words of advice around that sort of stuff?
I'll go ahead and start this one off, but you're never going to know that until you start. And I think for me as well, that was something that I had to really face, because I had the same feelings. Like, what if nobody cares about what my fashion tips are? Like that, at that point, that just seemed like something that made no sense at all. But with consistency, you'll begin to build a community that loves what you're doing. And that's straight facts. Like any single person out here that you think is successful or does what they love, if you dig back into their story, you'll realize that they were probably afraid. They started putting it out there and they stuck to it. And then, you know, it happened. Whether it happened on a big scale or a small scale or what have you, it happened. And you just have to tell yourself that. And that's what brought me a lot of peace when I had those feelings, because for some people, they don't go away really quickly. But the only thing that I can be doing to realize that dream is to just be consistently putting my stuff out there. And right now we have all of the resources right at our fingertips as Carlos was saying, to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Such a good point. Yeah, consistency. Keep working at it. Keep working at the craft. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Anybody else want to comment on either of those two comments, questions?
I think bouncing off of Dwayne and Sandy, really, first of all, there is an audience for everyone. Mm-hmm. And we do have, you know, like Carlos was saying, and Dwayne, all of us, we've now all reached further afield. And so really, like, we have that available to us. It was available to us before, but people weren't sort of like sitting in one place long enough to actually realize that was happening, you know, that we could, I think, do that. So there's a huge audience, there's a huge global market. And in that global market, like Sandy's saying, if you are, you know, passionate about your work and you keep evolving, I think that's also, you know, really important. You have to evolve in your art. So if you're putting your art and nothing is coming back, then maybe it's more learning, more mentoring, being a little bit more open to different opportunities, right? Like the thing you start with is not necessarily the thing you end up with, and it most likely will not be linear. That would be very odd if it was. So if you're willing to do this, then you're going to pick up different layers along the way. And I think that, you know, Dwayne's point of like, I always, you know, doubt. We all do that, and that is human. For me, the only way that I can push through and work so hard is that I think about the people at the end who are benefiting, and whether it's because they're enjoying your art or they're doing a program with you, but it's the people at the end that like you are serving, and hopefully you are obviously getting something from that and in that creative process. I have to ask for a lot of money, and that is one of like, I can't, it kills me, you know. I'm doing fundraising constantly, and I have to literally, every time I pick up the phone or write that email, I have to make myself remember, right, it's for those people that I taught this morning when all that joy and beauty was happening and I was making a difference in someone's life. That's why I'm making this call, and then I can do it, you know. And so definitely, yeah, just to Dwayne's point, that's really important. Who are the people at the end who are receiving?
And it's important to remember that it doesn't have to be work that, you know, you may think, oh, this benefits society or people, to have impact. Anything that you do can have impact. Even when we do bad things, it has impact.
well, yeah, but I mean, that the thing is, it doesn't have to be a service. Like when I looked at Carlos' work behind him, like profound change happened, something emotional happened to me, and I'm like, I need to see more of that, right? Like he just gave me something by me just like seeing it on his screen. So, you know, and now it's going to enrich my life because I'm going to dig a little bit deeper there. So
yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Anyone else have anything they want to add?
I think the only thing I would add to that too is, who you think your audience is, it doesn't necessarily mean that that is your audience. So you might be putting your work out and it's not really getting the traction that you want. And it just means you haven't found the right people for your work as yet. So you might have to also be looking at how you're putting out your work, how you're packaging that work, where you're putting, the work so that people can see it. So, sometimes it's just the wrong people who are seeing it, and there actually is a market. You just haven't found, your tribe of people yet. And until you actually start putting it out and start experimenting, you'll actually never know who those people are who actually gravitate to what it is that you're offering.
Absolutely. And as Sandy said, until you don't do it, you won't know. Exactly. Yeah. Carlos, do you have anything you want to add about that piece of self-doubt? And
I'm good. So, I think I'm good.
You're good?
I say that like the people doesn't have to get like frustrated and sad or about what they are doing, and because they have to 100% believe that my advice, like everyone say here, like everyone is a person that's gonna like what you do, and they're gonna find a connection. Like I realize my art is not it's a product because I'm making money from them, but my art find a connections. I don't do a decorative art. I do a concept about human beings, and they have to find the specific client. It's not your person that say, I'm gonna find something for my living room behind my couch. No, you have to find the connection to get my art, because it's something very specific. I don't make happy people. I don't make people smiling, or no. I do a really strong concept of it, a big reflection about human being, sadness, frustration, love, passion, and all that things in a piece. Is a very heavy concept. I had to find and find it, and at least that find a person that they want to get it is something that they say a lot. I know that a lot of artists that create beautiful pieces, like landscapes, like beautiful portraits, beautiful concepts, like whatever, with a lot of beautiful color with flowers. I believe that is also more sellable, in a way that they find a market. So for me, that is, I suggest that people don't get frustrated. Everything is gonna be, you're gonna find and use the phone, and you're gonna find somebody that's gonna like what you do.
Yeah, there's definitely somebody for everybody. And I think we talk a lot about in this course is that, understanding what emotions you're creating and understanding who else has that same emotions and is looking for them. So I think that there's so many people out there that it's impossible there is nobody to receive your work, right? So I think that kind of brings us to the end. If anybody has any other questions that you didn't get a chance to ask, but you really would like to ask, please send an email to Mona at WorkInCulture. Mona, can you just put in your email again, in case there's people on here who are not part of the workshop. And then I want to just thank everybody, Dwayne, Sandy, Sarah, and Carlos, for coming on today. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you sharing your experiences, your stories, really meaningful. And if you want to connect with them further, you can also get their contact info through Mona, and they will be able to kind of make those connections further on.
I also want to thank our wonderful panelists on behalf of WorkInCulture. Thank you so much for taking the time out today on a Saturday. I think it's really nice out too. So thank you for spending this time with us indoors, online, on screen. And it's, even though we're connected online, it's very meaningful to have these conversations and to engage and share with one another, especially in times like this. So so really appreciate that you're here with us. Thank you so much.
Thank
So I
you.
hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you
Hey,
so much
guys.
for having me.
Bye.
All right, thank you
It was
all.
great meeting everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Everyone.